So we're going to call this meeting of the Belmont Information Technology Advisory Committee to order. It is Thursday, September 23rd. It's a little bit past 8 p.m. And welcome everybody. While we were waiting for the meeting to get a quorum here, we've been talking to Matt from the Structural Change Committee, and we'll I guess, Matt, maybe just have you reprise some of what you've said.
Sure.
And not keep you too long.
No
But before we do that, let's just, do we want to, I think we can review the meetings at the end, minutes at the end of the meeting, can't we, Dave? Like, we don't need to do that up front.
I don't see why we couldn't wait.
Yeah. So why don't we just go in and move on to the first item of business, which is Matt. I don't see anyone here from the public who wants to comment, so I think we can move into that. And Dave, you've taken attendance, I guess.
Yeah, I have it. I've taken attendance.
Okay.
I've included Matt as a member of the public. So
He is a member of the public, which he is, yeah. So I guess, Matt, maybe just update Glenn and Jonathan a little bit just on the structural impact group and kind of what you guys are up to.
Sure. So thanks, Paul. So my name is Matt Gasparo. I'm a resident member of the Structural Change Impact Group. There's 11 of us, 5 resident employees, I believe, and select board member, and then members from school committee, warrant committee, and other committees. And we've started since January, and our task is to collect ideas from the town to address the structural deficit that is inevitable in this town, and ideas for new revenues, cost mitigations, efficiencies. We look for ideas for residents to submit it on our Structural Change Impact Group website as a form. And we're looking really, I was saying earlier, darts in a dartboard, these ideas where, we're the think tank, we're the research group, and we'll take this on to look at these ideas because the town doesn't have the resources or the time to do so. And we're not an implementation body. Our goal is to just collect these ideas, kind of research them as best we can, process them, and then culminate into a report of recommendations where we would include a method to implement and even sustainability for that idea, as well as to rule out any ideas. Some might just find it'll be illegal or just not feasible, what have you. We have 3 separate working groups. One is dealing with personnel, staffing. Another one deals with consolidation and regionalization, so taking a service and maybe doing it shared with another community. And then the group I'm part of it is town services, revenue, and budget. And some ideas that come our way are software focused within the town. And we've started to look through them, and we've kind of come to a point where we're going to need some outside help to help us research these ideas to see if they're what we can do, what's viable. A couple sample ideas. One of them I think is probably the highlight of the one is implementing a 311 system. And a 311 system is a method for a resident to put in a request to the town, usually using could be on the website, but probably through your phone, where you're going to take a picture of a pothole or sidewalk issue or trash issue, whatever inquiry a resident wants to make, they can quickly make it on their phone, and it would go into the work order system that someone from the town of Belmont could then let it filter through the appropriate department for a response. And then a resident could obviously check on the status of it. 311 systems are used really all of our neighboring towns use them, and Belmont does not have one right now. And we've looked at some vendors. Some are pretty popular, like C Quick Fix. There are a variety of ones. And what we also found is that these vendors not only offer 311 systems, but other software systems like fleet management, asset management, work order management. So we said, well, gee, probably might make more sense. What does the town of Belmont use for these systems, if anything at all? Is it centralized? And maybe it makes more financial sense to package things together in a bundle. If you're going to pick a vendor for 311, you pick a vendor for someone else. So we had a meeting with David Petto, And we found that it's pretty decentralized in town with software that some groups like the IT and accounting group use a software vendor called Boss Solutions. And the facilities and the school department uses a work order system called School Dude. And DPW is just still using Excel. And the general sense we got from David is that, you know, when there's a new software that somebody wants, it's pretty much, you know, there's really no cohesive effort to see if it can be used across town, or you know, if this could be something that would another town department could share to use and maybe have a voice in the matter of what software to pick. So we've kind of decided, well, maybe we need to have a kind of a review of the current state of software in the town and an inventory of what software is being deployed, the terms, whether it's on-prem or SaaS-based, and what's the contract like. And of course, you know, we can't really go out and just say, oh yeah, C-click fix, that'll work. You know, there's probably lots of opinions of what's going to work for each department and whatnot. So it's a little more than we can handle, and that's how we ended up here. There's some other software ideas too about a resident inquiry software, which probably is similar to a work order, where you know, residents often email or show up at town hall for, you know, I want a copy of this permit, you know, or I want to look up some sort of, you know, document or whatnot. And, you know, what one of the ideas was is what to identify the top 10 common tasks that a department performs for the town, for the citizens. And maybe we can, you know, see if there's a way to automate, or maybe something needs to be put online or what have you. But the whole goal of all this is get all this data put in like a work order system. You can then mine this data and figure out where is time being spent in the town. Is it allocated, you know, the most efficient ways? And then you've got some data to make further decisions down the road, you know, based off what we see from like a work order system. So
I know Ellen Cushman has been, who's also part of this website renewal committee with me. It's again, there's so much overlap here, but that question of just, you know, of what do departments, or what are they doing? And to the extent that they are interacting with the public, what are the requests that they're getting? We came at it from the idea of, is this information we can front on the website and therefore save them the journey down to town hall and the interaction with the town employee, right? Are these resources that we can make available to them online so they don't have to make that trip? So actually, Ellen has been going out and doing some interviews, and maybe we can share that information with you, with folks in different departments within town hall, is just about asking that very question, kind of what, you know, what are you doing? Like, what are your main tasks here on a day-to-day basis? And when people are asking you for things, what types of information are they asking you for? So we may be able to actually, we may have some of that. I don't think she's anywhere near done, but I know she's started, and that may be stuff that we can share with you guys as well, just to prevent duplication of effort.
yeah, that would be excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I will connect you with Ellen on that. Because even stuff like chatbots, you know, which are just ubiquitous now. I mean, the technology is not super expensive, and they're actually really quite easy to train and effective. I think most companies use them to one degree or another, most consumer-facing companies. You know, for an office like the town clerk, having a chatbot on the website to field, I mean, they're getting, I forget what the number Ellen used, but hundreds of calls a day. And, you know, to have a chatbot who could field some of those questions would be hugely time and you know, time saving for the town and resource saving. So
Yeah, you know, when you mentioned the chatbots, I think about like a call center too. And I bring this up because when we looked at for 311 systems, we actually came across Chelsea, which did an RFP in 2019. They used C-click fix, and they were looking for an alternative vendor from C-click fix. And that caught our attention because I kept thinking, oh, C-click fix, that's great. A lot of the towns use it. We haven't talked to them. That's kind of our next phase, is to talk to other towns. And we're very interested in talking to them to see why they wanted to move away from it.
yeah,
I sent a link to it about they had this RFP, and I never they didn't post what the results from the RFP was, but they eventually just deployed a company called QSend, which I guess has a call center too, and it's integrated in their website and whatnot. You know, so it was very interesting. There are certainly ones that we wanted to highlight to maybe talk to as someone who kind of seems to go an extra step beyond just like a C++ fix or whatnot. So yeah, you're right. There's more than just an app. It could be a chat box. It could be if there's some other solution that helps to filter out town inquiries that will
Just
alleviate
the
time.
kind of 80-20 rule, right? I mean, you know,
Yeah.
I think most of the questions you're getting on a day-to-day basis are probably the same questions. And you know, you can get rid of all those. So yeah, well, I'll connect you with her, and maybe that's an area where we could follow up as well.
Right.
I think the question of the inventory on software and software licensing is a really interesting one. I mean, I know this is a seemingly simple, but actually very difficult question to ask. And I know that private companies struggle with this too. Like, what software are we using? And, you know, obviously one way to do it is to kind of, you know, crawl your infrastructure and find the software. The other is to do it through, you know, go back through the finance department and find the invoices and the payments that are going out and kind of back into it that way, or some combination of those approaches. But I don't know what approach you guys have taken on that, or if the committee has any thoughts on what would be the best way to come up with a comprehensive inventory of what we're using. And then obviously there's like the BMLD, which is a whole different ball of wax. And even public safety, they've got some very specialized packages, I think, there. But
Yeah, we met with David, and that was really it. And you know, he only knew what you know. I don't think he might have known all the software. I don't know if he had like a list or not. I don't think that was in his purview.
I doubt he had a comprehensive list. Yeah,
Yeah.
off the top of his head. Yeah.
So Matt, if I may ask, and you know, thanks for that overview. I did have a chance earlier this year to speak with Joe Bernard, who I believe is
Yep.
also one of the resident appointees, as well as Aaron Pinkalingus, who I believe is he's an appointee with a different title, right? Like through the school committee.
He's from
something like
Vision
that.
21, yeah.
From Vision 21. Thank you. So I was familiar with the effort. And yeah, if I'm not mistaken, your charter is for like 18 months or something like that, right? You actually have a time limit to it.
Yeah, I think we're supposed to have a report by December, but it's gonna get extended, you know.
Get pushed. Okay. Yeah. So no, I understand that difference between, like, you know, think tank versus implementation, right? And I think that was an important one that your team was clear about. I guess one of the questions I have for you is, what is the goal you want to walk away from this meeting with, or, you know, what objective, right? You know, is it that there's certain things that we as a group think about and report back to you? Is it something that you just wanted to have as an open forum in the confines of this meeting? Like what is or is it partly just informative to say these are some of the things that your group is working on, and for us to be sort of in sync, because as Paul's been pointing out, there's some overlap with other efforts going around, such as the website renewal.
Yeah, definitely the informative part, because we have no idea we're not even sure what was in your purview, if it gets into software versus more just kind of town infrastructure. What, you know, certainly that kind of information you mentioned, like, hey, you know, there could be someone putting together a software list or whatnot. Definitely, certainly an action item would be, if this is something of interest to kind of take charge on, would be that, you know, we could work together or not, is if this is something where to investigate the software solutions and kind of come up with what would be our not necessarily a specific vendor, but what type of software should we be implementing within the town that could harness efficiencies both from town workers, employees, and also satisfy residents' needs to interact with the town. And you know, once you get the list, then you're going to find, okay, well, what's missing? What should be on this list that's not there? And then how do you go about doing it? Because it's clear that that, there isn't going to be somebody in the town that says, okay, I'm going to spearhead this effort and talk to all the departments. It sounds like it's going to have to probably come from some sort of body committee. It doesn't have to be you guys. It could be some kind of new committee that gets created or whatnot. I not kind of volunteer anyone, but I think in terms of offering up at the end of our report a solution that says, okay, we need to centralize the town software, and the recommendation, here's all the info we've gathered, the software that's being used, here's what's missing, here's the type of software that we need, and then what? It's kind of like, well, we don't really want to dump it on the board's lap and say, you figure it out. Okay, hey, ITAC has said that maybe this is something they can tag on, or this is really not in their purview. We should, there's a separate working group within you guys, or what have you. It probably should involve actual town department employees who has more knowledge of the inner workings. So it's more of it's kind of an all three, Glenn. So your question.
That's totally fine.
We definitely came into this as like, okay, what don't we know? And what is interested to you guys? Because we don't want to certainly volunteer anyone to do something that's not in their purview. And I don't know what else is on your docket. So you guys might have your own stuff to do. So, but I think it was kind of clear we have this shared understanding that Belmont needs more from software. So however that works, I mean, we can, meeting of the minds, and we can say, all right, how, collectively, how can we achieve this goal for the town? And, maybe it's a continual joint effort where we can do some on our part or whatnot. We're certainly very amenable to anything.
Well, I wonder if just the job of maybe pulling together that catalog of software licenses and packages that are being used might be something that this committee could take on and devote our resources to. It would be in our purview and might be a useful tool for the town to start assessing,
It sounds like what you mentioned before about cataloging all the outbound requests from the town.
Yeah, I mean, we were doing it really just from the perspective of third party, basically web-based services that we're, whether it's API based interactions between our website or our infrastructure and these other services. But of course, that's just one type of software that we're using. Wouldn't be a bad idea to have a comprehensive list.
I have a question. I would assume, although I don't know, that even though some of the departments might be making individual software selections to satisfy their particular needs, I would think that all of this has to sort of pass muster with Dave Petto. Isn't that true? I'm talking about the town, not the schools.
On the town side, I think so. Yeah.
So in other words, he should already have something of an inventory, I would think. And then on the school side, there's Steve Mazzola, and undoubtedly he has, a similar inventory. So constructing this list may not capture everything. Someone correctly mentioned that the municipal light department is its own sort of unusual domain, but it probably would capture 90% of what the town currently uses, and you would be able to at least have a pretty solid foundation.
Yeah, I think to your point, Charlie and Matt, if you aren't aware, we do have relationships and connections with different IT directors, and Steve Mazzola, as Charlie mentioned, who's the IT director for the school system, and then I'm blanking now. Robin
Tilburg,
right on the Belmont Light Department's side, and then we even know the gentleman whose part-time role is to take care of some of the police resources, right? I mean, he does fleet as well and a few other things. So we certainly have those connections, and they're part of our purview, I guess. And I think without going into like a full financial audit, we could probably get to that 80-90% kind of sense of what is being used and the kind of big buckets where dollars are spent. That shouldn't be that hard. Each of these different groups have standing budgets, and those budgets are allocated towards things like software as well as hardware and personnel costs. So I think it would be a reasonable thing for us to take on, if Paul agrees and the rest of the committee agrees. And we could use that as sort of an input into your process, and potentially have a discussion around what some of it means, in terms of like, okay, now we've got this raw data that says this is where we are today. What are some of the possible paths you could take, based on what this information is telling us,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
And then, timing wise, that's always tricky. Everyone's always busy. Asking for additional information like this is challenging. But I would guess if we plan for some reasonable deadline, I'll just toss something out and say like within 2 months from today, right? To say that we'll at least have a sketch of what that raw information looks like, and it's sort of collated into some drafted report form. That might be a reasonable goal to set, and then it would allow some time to react to it and build it into your report then.
That would be awesome. That would be awesme.
Given the
And,
mushy amorphous types of assignments I typically give this committee, it's actually quite well bounded, and be a good one for us. Good change.
Right. And
good change.
Yeah, and Matt, I don't know if this came up in a prior conversation between you and Paul, but we've had similar conversations with the same groups about other related topics, right? In terms of potentials for shared services, or what kind of software is in use for security, for example. So this is sort of in line with a theme of conversation that we've been having for some time now as well. Now, one of the challenges I will mention is that you've mentioned that you're not an implementation group. You're sort of the think tank and brain trust. We're in a similar sort of capacity, right? We're an advisory committee, so we are not an implementation committee. And the full-time staff are those who are charged with implementation. So we understand that challenge, and we also are subject to that challenge, right? So
yeah, no, I mean, and I think the goal really I like to see from our group that we do is that we never just want to dump an idea onto the lap and say, hey, hit select board, like, okay, yeah, we need 311, and we looked up a couple of years ago. Like, we want to at least give a path towards implementing that says, okay, you know what, like, this is going to require a lot more research. You really need to dedicate a separate committee to it, and that's their purview to do, and that's only they could create that committee right now. Or it's there's certainly some things, even though we're not implementation, there are things that we could like have discussions with that you can get 90% of the way there or whatnot. Sometimes you can get it to a state where you just rubber stamp something, but it's clear in something like this, it's going to involve a lot of town departments say, I think, or whatnot, that we'll have to just get it as far as we can in terms of at least recognizing what the town needs, and then just kind of spell out what can be gained from that investment, because it is always usually an upfront investment. But if it's SaaS-based, maybe it's not so bad, because it's
that's always hard, given that your purview is actually, what are some of the cost-cutting measures you can suggest?
Yeah, well, it's the thing, because it's like, well, if I only spend this, then I can get that. But again, it kind of goes into the efficiency route, because there's so much more efficiency that would be gained from something like this. And typically, like, we're not talking about like some really expensive PeopleSoft software that you're talking hundreds of thousands a year. I mean, they're very, I think Seacock Fix was something like 8,000 a year or something like that. I mean, it's, and these all can add up, of course, but I don't think we're not talking about some $1 million investment. And I mean, when you guys have the cybersecurity charge, I mean, those can get more expensive, sure. But from ours, this is just like, just using some third party, who's got the best one, best bang for the buck in terms, and really what software will play nice with other software. That's probably the hardest part, because you end up with too many vendors that can't all, interconnect with one another. So there's that piece of it. But if we can solve that part and get as much as far as we can without
Yeah, I mean, when you're saying there are 3 different work order systems that use in town, and one of those work order systems is Microsoft Excel, you know, that suggests to me that there's probably room for improvement. Yeah. So yeah, let's,
That just means there's a whole lot of labor going into maintaining
yeah,
that,
exactly.
that probably
Yeah.
isn't necessary.
Yeah,
No, and
Yeah.
we do recognize one thing too. I mean, any software you pick always involves, you need time for training, both setting up a software, like if it's a CRM, which I appreciate what David Petto said that, it's a lot to configure it to what you need. And then having to do that across all departments, I mean,
Yep.
that's going to get very hairy.
yep,
And then, of course, training. I mean, it takes time you don't just say, oh, great, this new software, go log in. It does take some training. So there's certainly a lot of upfront time that would be involved with that, and who does the training, or, hopefully the vendor has that in place. But so there's certainly, like you said, there could be, spending more and more time up front, but, it's like you said, it's a 21st century government that we need. So it's going to be done sooner or later.
yep.
Um,
So does somebody want to move to undertake a survey of software used in the town?
I'm starting to type something out. Give me a second.
We will give you a second.
David, do you have something in mind, or do you want me to try? I'm happy to make the
Yeah,
motion.
I just want to write it down before I try to say it, because then I'll forget what I said and when I have to write it down.
Okay, well, we'll let you finish. Sorry.
I'll say the one thing about having the Zoom meetings in our group is the recordings. Where I do the minutes, it's great. It's like, I'll just go back and look at the recording. I'm not talking and typing the same time and whatnot. And it's
Yeah.
especially a lot of meetings I'm on a spreadsheet, so I'm trying to go to a spreadsheet and then write down a minute. It's just not gonna work. Record now and
Many advantages to the online meetings, many advantages. More than disadvantages, in my opinion.
So I move that ITAC shall undertake an effort to develop an inventory of software assets throughout the town. Do I need to say who that gets reported to? No.
No,
No.
maybe to be shared with the
Structural impact group.
structural impact group, structural
Your
impact
structural
change
change-
group.
Structural change impact group. I
Structural
already
change
wrote that
impact
down.
group. Yeah. To be shared with the structural change impact group
Okay, so
Yeah.
moved.
and the town manager, obviously.
Yeah,
Second,
And town management.
I'll second it.
all in favor? Paul Roberts, aye.
Aye.
Glenn Wong, aye.
Jonathan Green, aye.
Dave, you got to vote on this one.
Yeah, I said yes.
Unanimously adopted. Great, guys. I think it's a good outcome, good concrete outcome. And then on the matter of a joint meeting with the Structural Change Impact Group and ITAC, we're open to it. I know you guys do Friday morning meetings. It could be either the whole committees or some subset of the committees.
Yeah, I mean, I think I actually didn't expect you guys to adopt to agree to an undertaking. So I think
We're all business here, Matt. We don't just talk. We're doers. We're doers, not
Right.
talkers.
we can certainly I think. I mean, it's something that probably after this, if you guys are undertaking the software thing, maybe is somewhere down the line or whatnot. I think
Tie that in with the presentation of that and do the
Yeah.
meeting then. Yeah, okay, that works. So we
I
don't
think
need
that
to
would work.
set something now. We can kick that down the road a little bit.
the one
you
thing
have
about
Go ahead.
ahead.
the one thing about the software, the review, also just if you could include like the terms of it, with the license, it's SaaS-based, cloud-based. I think that's all
Yes.
of that info would be very helpful. Just
Understood,
so we know
yeah.
what are we in too deep in?
Yeah. What are we exactly? What are we committed to for the long term, and what might be things that we can move off of in the near term? Yep. And obviously where there's, once you have that, where there's overlap or opportunities for consolidation. So, yes. Matt,
Yeah, and
anything
any-
else?
No, I mean, I think, that's gonna be a huge help, a huge start. And then for the website stuff, I guess are you the chair, Paul, of the website committee, or is it?
I'm not. I'm just a member, but I will connect you with the chair and connect you with Ellen, who's been doing that work with the departments on,
Mhm.
kind of their front facing
Yeah.
activities, public facing activities. Michael Lanza is the chair of that, Matt, and
Okay.
I will loop you in with him and with Ellen as well.
Great. Well, I don't want to take any more of your meeting time. Thank you for having me as a guest.
It's been a pleasure, and thanks for all the great work you're doing. I really enjoy the matrix, and I will contribute some ideas I don't think I have yet. And that would be the other thing to our members, obviously, is if you haven't had a chance to take a look at the matrix that Matt and his team have put together and review some of the ideas there, and or submit your own ideas, ideally after reading through it, making sure that nobody else already submitted it.
No, actually, don't worry. We're fully admitted. We get at this point. We have 400 ideas. You get duplicates. Usually, it's mostly like,
Okay.
I don't like my trash contract, and you get the same one over and over again. But by all
Yeah,
means, don't worry about that. Just have an idea instead of putting
Put it in
down
there.
on a sticky
it's
note. just
fascinating
stick it-
reading, and there are some great ideas, and a few of them I haven't even thought about myself. And but there's obviously, we got really smart people on this committee, so there's room for more. So
And you can do it anonymously. So if you have an idea, you're like, I don't want anyone to know that it was mine.
yeah,
And you just want to stick it out there. If you've been dying to say, just do this, please stick it out there. So,
Sure.
sounds good.
Yeah, I think I filled one of those out probably
Okay,
about
good.
4 months ago.
cool. Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
you.
Matt. Really
All
liked
right.
having you on. We'll do it again.
All right. Bye.
Hey, Ryan, I wanted to make sure I included you as well. Welcome to the meeting. Are you just observing, or does the library have business before ITAC, or anything you guys wanted to talk about specifically? You're muted. We've all been there, man. Hey. Mm-mm. Don't
don't
worry
think-
about it. You can also just chat. If there's anything you wanted to pose to the committee, you can chat.
I've had to do that a few times.
Yeah, me too. We all have it.
Yeah. Yeah, I finally got a new computer a month and a half ago, and that's so far seems to have solved most of my issues with that.
Very good.
It's
MacBook,
what I
Dave?
got for running. What's that?
MacBook?
No, it's it's an HP Windows box. It's with it's got all these cool touch screen features and stuff that running Linux on it isn't practical. So I'm running a virtual machine in WSL, and that's how
Okay.
I'm taking my minutes. I still have my Linux box for a file server because it's got 2 terabytes in it. I don't know why anybody puts 2 terabytes in a laptop, but they did. But it's 8 years old, so that's why I was having so much trouble with Zoom.
Yeah.
The
Um,
the CPUs just couldn't keep up.
Happy New Year, by the way, David.
Well, thank you.
Hope you had a great holiday.
And I think
Jo-
Jonathan as
Jonathan
well.
as well. Jonathan, Happy New Year. Okay, let's move on to the rest of the agenda. I would love to have this wrapped by 9. I don't think there's a ton more to talk about. So the website renewal committee, I feel like I've already kind of talked a lot about it. We are meeting again.
Thank you. Had to find my unmute button. Took a while.
Excellent. We let's see, we are meeting again early next month, early in October. I am working on, so we're working on the issue of third party or outlinks basically from the website to third party services, just in an effort to kind of see if we can get a catalog of all the different parts of the website where we're basically sending visitors off to third party sites. We just want to understand that a little bit better. And I know Dave and Dan were working on that. So hopefully by next meeting, we'll have something on that. And
I have raw data. It needs to be post-processed a bit.
okay.
Dan, I don't want to speak too much for Dan, but I think he ran into some of the same issues I have. We did, sort of like basic web crawl type things to try to pull down pages and then see what links were in the pages and see what was not in Belmont. It turns out that we're assuming that given how long it took for these crawls to run and so on, that we're dealing with a site that creates dynamic pages. And so there's a good chance that we're not hitting certain leaves as we try to do our crawl. I ran mine for 24 hours first, and I got almost nothing back because I realized I was basically doing a depth first search. I redid the code to go more of a breadth first way and gave it a number of levels down, and I ran that. So I feel a little better about that one, but the thing was still processing after. So I'm convinced I was running into repeats just because I was triggering some dynamic content somehow. And I'm not enough of a web HTML expert to know that, but I did get the second time around, I got a decent sized list of things that are outside, but most of it is documents. It's not like applications and stuff. It's like document repositories at the state and so on. And so I'm trying to figure out how to filter some of that stuff out so that it doesn't, because that's not what we're caring about here. And you're muted, Paul.
Yeah, that's not exactly what we're after.
Yeah, so I found a few things that look like applications. But most of what I found going off site was
just
were
links to
things
document repositories. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
links off to
exactly.
just other websites. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of stuff about regulation and things like that they deal with.
Okay. All right. So that's going afoot, and it sounds like there might be some opportunities for connection between the structural change impact group and them, just around this bigger question of, how is the website supporting what the town employees are doing, in their interactions with the public, and are there ways, obviously the big question is, are there ways, opportunities to automate some of that or offload it to chatbots, to third parties, in ways that create efficiencies for the town, free up our employees to do higher, more value-added work than just fielding requests from the public. So that's the big goal there. That committee is moving ahead pretty well. We have heard from Civics Plus. I think we're looking to talk with some other vendors, both on the website hosting front and on the thing, again, like 311 services, those types of things. Again, kind of reaching some of the same conclusions as the structural impact group, which is once you start looking at these companies, you're like, wow, there are a lot of things that they offer that we don't do right now that we might think really hard about doing because they're good things. 311 being just the most obvious, but a lot of these Civics Plus and other vendors have pretty well developed platforms of services that the town may actually benefit from using, but Technically, that's beyond the purview of the committee, but it is something that we are kind of kicking around. I don't have anything to add on the cyber awareness program, except that I know we need it and I want to do it. And I'm talking with the library about kind of what it might look like. I did just do a public records request to the Belmont Police Department on fraud reports over the last 3 years. And there have been 977 filed fraud complaints with the Belmont PD going back to 2018. So this is about one a day that's resulting in a police report. Obviously, that's probably the minority of fraud incidents in town that actually turn into police reports. So it's a really big deal. And I'm not sure if we're doing everything we could for our residents on this, but I think, you know, finding out a little bit more what the Belmont PD is doing to educate the public. I have reached out to our Board of Health as well and asked them if they might be interested in collaborating around some information campaigns and efforts to educate the public just about this fraud, because it is obviously incredibly common.
How about Jim Syracuse?
Paul, a real quick question. I'm sorry, Charlie.
I have emailed Jim
Just
as well.
I need a clarification.
Yeah.
When you say a cyber awareness program, you're not talking about the one that came up in executive session with the select board, right? You're talking
No.
about what we talked about at the last meeting.
Yeah, but more
Okay.
along the lines of, again, what we've done in past years with kind of
Got it.
education sessions at the library, or, you know, obviously we've done them at the senior center as well. And Peter Sturziero had reached out to me over the summer and said that they would love to offer that to their members, and will we be interested in helping them with that. Charlie, I have reached out to Jim. I actually reached out to him when I got that public records request, because one of the problems is actually with kind of taxonomy, like the way they classify these reports. It's very difficult to understand what happened. It's like, you know, fraud above $1,000, and, you know, you're sort of like, well, what does that mean? And my sense is that actually I think there is a standard taxonomy for these types of reports, but I think it's quite dated. So I'm trying to work with Jim and just sort of be like, help me understand what these all mean. I will be honest, I've had trouble getting email through to him. I've had a lot of my emails kicked back.
Yeah, I've seen some bounce backs. Do we know if he's actually still in the service?
I think so. It was weird because I had an email exchange with him when I first got the report. He like got right back to me, and then I like replied to his email like, oh, interesting, you know, like, and that got kicked back. And then everything I've sent to him since then got kicked back. I did say to Dave, I let Dave know like, hey, I'm having this problem. And he did say that they've been having some issues with their server, and that he's looking into it. So I think it's an exchange issue, not a staffing issue, but I don't know for sure.
Well, when you were able to get a hold of Jim, did you have an opportunity to actually ask him how many of these fraud problems actually involved technology-based devices or technology-based processes?
No, and it's a really good question, because my sense is, and I'll actually just say, just from personal experience, my dad fell for one of these fraud things about 2 months ago to the tune of like $1,000 that started on his laptop with like, you know, you've been infected, call Microsoft at this number. And then it switched over to phone, where they had him going to Walgreens to buy gift cards to send to Microsoft. I mean, it was freaking crazy.
So the other
It's only $1,000.
the other thing is, in that, I'm willing to bet that in that number of reports, and I don't remember what it was, but you said it was fairly high. Are
977.
things where, what was it, 977?
Yeah.
I'll just quote it. Are things like my report from 2014, which was nobody ever contacted me.
Yeah.
Right. It was IRS tax refund fraud, and the IRS was attacked, and my identity.
Yep.
And, anybody who's been impacted by,
Yes.
one of the breaches,
Yes,
and had, and gotten bit
Yep.
by, through that.
yes,
So some of them, basically people are at the mercy of whoever's holding their data.
absolutely. And
Not a good
I
place
was
to
a victim
be.
of that as well, Dave. We had the IRS fraud as well. In fact, I think it's
Yeah.
this past year was the first year in 7 or 8 years that we've been able to actually file online. So absolutely, absolutely. Or it's the, phony Microsoft tech support phone call, and that type of thing. I mean, which is one of the frustrating things is just, it's very difficult to look at that data and have any idea what the patterns are, like, are any of these phishing email fraud? Is any of this, Nigerian, spam stuff? Is any of this kind of hybrid stuff like my dad encountered? Like, what are the what are the MOs that are really prevalent right now that we could actually, in a kind of public health context, get out to people and say, hey, if you get one of these, here's a number to call, or here's a resource, where you can just understand that, like, this is fraud. I mean, my mother had one too, where somebody called her and claimed to be my sister, and had been in an accident or got arrested, and needed $10,000 in cash, and my mom went to Bank of America to get $10,000 in cash out and put it in an envelope and mail it to these people, like, literally. And it was only the teller at Bank of America who was like, I'm not giving you this money. Like, this is a fraud. You need to go to the police department and report it. And, like, I think my mother, like, argued with her, and she was like, this is a fraud. Like, and eventually, like, convinced her to go to the Wellesley PD, and they were like, oh yeah, like, this happens all the time. But, like, she was about to do it, so it's
So that was almost a combination of processes. I mean,
that was just a total social engineering, I've been crying. That's why my voice sounds different. I mean, it was, it's really sophisticated with my dad too. It's like, I've done some reporting into this, and, like, they had him go to Walgreens to buy a Target gift card because Target actually has gotten wise to this and has a lot of signage around their gift card kiosks that say, if somebody's on the phone telling you to buy a card, like, it's a fraud and don't do it. And Walgreens, because they use this particular vendor that has these kind of gift card malls where they don't have that signage. And so the fraudsters have adapted, and now they're sending people to these gift card malls. But they told him to put his phone away when he went into the store, so they didn't see him talking on the phone. Like, they're super adept. Like, they know exactly, it's like cat and mouse. They know exactly what the retailers are doing to stop them, and they'll shift the narrative to get around it. It's really interesting. Just as a reporter, it's super interesting. Sorry for my dad, but
well, of course, the other thing is that if you get a handle on that data and you can sort of organize it, I'm not going to be surprised to find out that the age distribution on the victim is really slanted towards people.
Yeah.
I'm going to include myself probably in the general age spectrum as your parents.
Yep.
And they are the targets because
they are, yeah. Unless it's like Dave said, it's a straight up identity theft and it's kind of indiscriminate. But I think for those types of scams, and that's why I think when you're thinking about, like, well, how do you address it? I think it really is just a messaging, education, public health kind of approach rather than a computer skills question, because it's really just about awareness, but anyway, we're off topic. So anyway, that's a long way of saying not much movement on the cyber awareness stuff. There has been movement, but I don't really have anything concrete to report, except that I'm continuing to pursue that. And maybe by our next meeting, I'll have something more concrete to present to you in terms of how we want to move forward with it. Any other comments on that? Okay, join op-ed on the remote meeting I shared with you just before this meeting. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it. I shared a Google Doc with all of you. I can bring it up on my screen if you want, or we can, we can do it offline, whatever you'd prefer.
When did you send this?
Like
Close.
literally 10 minutes before this meeting
All
started.
right, that's why I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
That's why I haven't seen it.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we don't need to talk about it. We can, you guys, I think you all have editing permission. So if you guys just want to leave comments in it and we can either talk about it in our next meeting and maybe hand it off shortly after that. We don't need to speed read it and speed comment on it today.
Yeah, we're also missing 4 members, so I mean, that might be.
And we're missing 4 members. Yeah, so I guess my message on that is check your inbox. There is a draft. It's a first draft. And it probably isn't a perfect draft, but it's a start. And I think the idea is we want to kind of just sort of get out and say, hey, we really think it's time to vote on this. This is low hanging fruit and,
Hey, I just took a quick look at it, and I saw the punchline at the end. How are you planning? So, as an op-ed piece, were you planning to sign this as Paul Roberts, chairman of the ITAC committee, or Paul Roberts, citizen, or Paul Roberts, like frustrated citizen?
The voice may go back and forth. I would like to have it be from the whole committee. And if that means we tone it down from the like Paul Roberts voice to the committee voice. And I also, honestly, I think I may have even shifted back and forth between we and I. So that would be one thing to look for. I think we also probably need to shorten it by about 100 words to get it into the Citizen Herald, or maybe 75 words.
Right.
So that's the other thing is I'm sure there's content to cut in there. Long and short, basically what I said is, who would have thought, we would have jumped into remote meetings like we did, but we have, and it's generally been really successful. Kind of necessity some other invention. That said, it's really time for the select board to green light the ability of committees to have members deliberate remotely, and it's unclear why they haven't, but they really need to, because once this emergency executive order expires, it's going to be a really cold shower for the town to go back to only in-person meetings, and most of them not streamed, and it's like you're in the room where it happened or you're not. So that's kind of basically my message.
Just for clarification, is that a letter going to the select board, or is that like an open letter in the Citizen Herald, or
The latter.
the latter? Okay, that's what I thought.
We've talked to the select board on numerous occasions. I don't think there's any mystery about what our position is. So this is more of a like, time to make a decision, guys. And kind of shine a little light on it. Okay. So take a look at that. I mailed it to all the members of the group. Feel free to put in comments or suggestions, and then we can review them at our next meeting, because of course we're not allowed to collaborate together online because of open meeting law. Other business.
While you're at it, let's generate an open letter to Brownsburger and what's the other guy's name to
Dave Rogers.
to fix, yeah, to
Update the open meeting
do something
laws.
to-
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. That's actually, the reality is, even if the select board votes on this, practically it might not make hardly any difference at all. If committees
Right.
decide to not allow members to participate remotely and they don't stream their meetings, then in essence, we're back to where we were 2 years ago. So you really do need, some bigger changes at the state level on OML.
I don't think any change to the OML is going to say thou shalt stream and thou shalt have a Zoom option.
Yeah.
So, ultimately, the committee chair is still going to have that. The problem is that like you said, whatever the select board does, it doesn't solve the whole problem. It just, it
Yeah.
just covers a little piece of it.
Yeah, although, I mean, an OML update could say something like, thou shalt make your meetings available to the public over the internet, not necessarily that they shall be remote, but simply that, you need to allow the public to participate, not just in person, but via the internet. So that could be something. And I think they definitely need to clarify and update some of this nonsense with, the online collaboration and, people letting committees, work, use tools like G Suite and Office 365 and so on, just to share ideas and collaborate on product, on committee work. That's just to require that we all sit in a room and work on things and while staring at each other in the face is just kind of ridiculous. But anyway, okay, so take a look at that. That brings us to the other business, airing of grievances, feats of strength, part of the meeting.
I think we probably need a motion to approve the minutes.
Oh, yeah.
And I did look
yes.
at the minutes from the last time, and I'll just comment because I know one of the open questions in there was whether or not I had submitted a report to the town. I think the answer is no, I have not. So that totally fell off my radar, but I will try to get that looked at before the next meeting.
Okay.
But otherwise, I wasn't here for the last meeting. Apologies for that, but so I can't actually move or vote on those minutes, or at least I have no basis for moving or voting on those minutes.
Can we approve the minutes without a quorum?
Yes,
vote?
you can, because the quorum basically is a majority vote of the quorum, right?
Yes, right.
Okay, all right.
And
So
so
we have a quorum.
absent,
We can take
you have
up
a
the
quorum,
minute.
and then you just need, of the five of us,
We're
three
gonna have
have to
4
vote.
votes and 1 abstention, basically, right?
Okay.
Those minutes looked good to me. Charlie or Jonathan, or, well, Dave, you wrote them. Charlie or Jonathan, do you have anything to add to these?
Not really. I mean, it was several months ago, but they look pretty complete. They were pretty complete.
I will try and get Steve in to talk about the new building. I think that was something we had kind of targeted for this meeting, but maybe we can find it. It's also pretty close to the beginning of the school year, so that probably would have been tough for him, but maybe October would be safer to get him in to talk about the 712 school and how things are going. I have heard anecdotally that there's been some issues just with wireless access, although I think that they've started to even out a little bit. So we could talk about that. Okay. Somebody, Jonathan or Charlie, do you want to move to adopt these minutes?
Yes, I move to adopt the minutes of the meeting on July 22nd, 2021. By the way, Dave, there are sort of typos, at least through the version that I'm looking at right now. But
Really?
Yeah, there's like a missing 2 and
they're not serious. They're not serious.
yeah.
Yeah, it's not
The
gonna.
only one I saw, Dave, was in the paragraph. Paul Roberts noted that it would be nice to get either Steve Mazzola.
That's the one I saw, actually.
Oh, yes. Okay, that's fixed now.
Also, in the paragraph above that, we discussed other potential resources for content, not another.
Yeah, at the top of the minutes, Dave, double check the date. Is it 2021 or 2022?
Oh, geez, thank you. Also fixed.
We don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. We've got a time machine.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we want to move to adopt, Charlie, do you want to move to adopt those as amended?
I move to adopt the minutes for the July 2021 meeting as amended.
Jonathan, second.
Darn it, where's that mute button?
I'll second. I second that.
Okay,
All in favor? Paul Roberts, aye. Charlie Smart, aye. Dave Goldberg,
Goldberg,
aye.
aye.
Jonathan, we actually need you on this, baby. Oh, maybe we don't. I guess we don't.
no, 3-2.
Three
Three
to
to
two, adopted.
I'm abstaining.
And two abstentions. People are gonna look at those notes and be like, what?
Yeah,
what
but
is
they
up
won't
with
get them for
this?
another month, so it's
What was in
okay.
what were in those minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, and do we want to set a time for the next
So
meeting?
we're set for the third Thursday of October.
Yep,
Because that's the plan. We haven't
That's the
really stuck to it
21st.
very well, but yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So
Okay, let's do it. Anything else?
So I just want to, if we're saying the third Thursday, that's the 21st, is that right?
Yes,
Yep.
that's right.
Got it. Okay.
And I will send a Zoom out and an agenda. All right, someone want to move to adjourn?
I'll
moved.
move. Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
When I,
Aye. Great. All right, Ryan, thanks for joining us. Everybody,
Thank you,
thank-
Ryan. Nice
have a great
meeting you.
evening.
thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Fellas.